With everything going on in the world, it is not surprising that so many of us feel completely exhausted and uninspired, which is why it is more important than ever that we learn to truly take care of ourselves, mind, body, and soul. So today we'll talk about the 5 different types of self-care and why it's so important that we do not ignore any one of them. Stick around. Welcome back. My name's Nina and I'm a life coach that specializes in personal development. Here at this channel we talk all about our emotional well-being, understanding our own psychology, and leading our best life possible. So if you aren't already a subscriber, please go ahead and become one. We definitely want you to stay connected. So if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know the topic of self-care is something that I bring up over and over again and something that I feel is critically essential to our well-being. However, I really think there's a lot of misconceptions about it. I feel like so many of us think that self-care has to do with pampering ourselves, like having a facial or getting our nails done or something like that. And while these activities can be lovely, self-care, or real self-care, needs to go a lot deeper than that. For it to truly be effective, it needs to genuinely refuel us and help us take care of our basic needs and sometimes our not so basic needs. It's something that we need to take seriously because research has shown us that self-care helps us to reduce stress and anxiety. It improves our mood and our overall outlook and well-being, and it also can help us have more fulfilling relationships because we show up in a much more positive way. So if self-care isn't just about taking bubble baths, what exactly is it then? We can think of self-care as being anything that we deliberately do or deliberately do not do that helps us take care of our mind, body, and soul. And it can be just about anything. But today I have divided it into 5 distinct categories. And these are physical, emotional, social, spiritual, and intellectual. So today I'm going to give some examples of how we can take care of ourselves in each of these categories. Now the first category is physical, and I feel like this is the most obvious category, but something that so many of us really do neglect. And I was certainly one of those people for years, especially when I became interested in self-development, because I was so concerned with my emotional well-being that my physical well-being really got set on the back burner. So that's something to be aware of. So starting with the basics here, we definitely want to make sure that we get enough sleep. And this is something that I recently made a video about because sleep deprivation seems to be becoming a bigger and bigger problem for more and more people. So we definitely want to make sure that we are getting that 7 to 9 hours of sleep. If you want further information, I will link that video down below on sleep deprivation so you can have that resource, but that's something that we definitely want to take seriously. Also, we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves through the foods we are eating. We want to nourish ourselves with what we are putting in our body. So often, again, we're so busy, we're not really thinking about what we are consuming, but it genuinely affects how we live our life and how our day goes. Physical self-care also needs to include exercise. And I know some people really just don't like to exercise, but it is so necessary. It helps us to reduce stress. Of course, it helps us with many aspects of our physical health and our overall well-being, but it's definitely something that we cannot ignore. And this is something that we want to do several days a week, if not every single day. Another thing that's important is to learn to rest when we need to. And rest is different than sleep. Rest means we need to take breaks as, we feel that they become necessary. So many of us just try to keep going, and that's because we have so many things that need to get done. But we do need to learn to step away and pay attention to any physical signs that we are getting that our body needs to rest. And of course, all those external physical things such as taking that bubble bath, getting the facial, getting a haircut, all those things go in this category as well because those things are important. We just don't want them to be the primary focus of all our self-care. The next category is emotional, and this is a huge one. So here we want to start with stress management. There's only so many things that a person can take, and again, with everything going on in the world, so many changes, so many different unusual situations, so many people feel overwhelmed. So it is very important that we really try to reduce our stress levels, and that can be different from person to person, but we want to make sure that we are doing things that we enjoy, such as going on a bike ride or reading or painting or whatever it is, but things that kind of reduce tension and help us to enter a more calm state. Another thing that we can do to really enhance our emotional well-being is to focus on being more kind, compassionate, and forgiving. When we focus on these types of emotions that make us feel good, even though we are giving to other people, we end up gaining from that transaction as well. We feel good about ourselves. On the flip side, we also want to make sure that we are expressing our negative emotions. So we never want to bottle them in. And we have to remember that as human beings, we are going to have a full spectrum of different emotions, and some of them are going to be negative in nature. So we don't want to push them away. We want to make sure that we are addressing them and expressing them so that we can push past them. A great technique for doing this is to journal our feelings. And again, this is something that I bring up in a lot of videos because I truly feel that journaling is a transformative exercise that absolutely everyone can benefit from. So this is where we can really safely express ourselves. We can say anything we want. This is not for anyone else to see. This is just for us to really kind of talk out how we are feeling, what we are going through, and later on we can always read through what we wrote to help us get a better understanding of what we are going through, because a lot of times we push these things away so much we don't even really know how we are feeling until we see it on the page. And the last thing I want to add in this category is laughter. It is more important than we realize. We take things so seriously, and there are so many serious things going on right now that it is so important that we create balance in our life. So we can do the things that we know do make us laugh, like watching funny movies and sitcoms, reading funny books, or calling those friends that always make you smile. The next category is social, and our social interactions have become more important than ever because we've been denied them for quite some time. And I know that in many cases, there are still restrictions on how social that we can be, but there are ways around it because it is so important that we truly maintain these social connections, not only for enjoyment, but also for support. So whenever we can have face-to-face interactions, that is always best, but if it is not safe in your area, definitely try to maintain these social connections through the internet, through the phone, through text, whatever you need to do, but we definitely need to feel that support and love around us. Another thing that you can do is to offer your help or to volunteer at places. There are many different organizations and institutions that would be thrilled to have a helping hand, so that's something that you can do as well. Another thing that we can think about is being careful with our toxic relationships and being aware when relationships are toxic. So we don't want to just hold on to and grab any relationship that we can. We want to be selective and make sure that we are only spending time with people that uplift us and add to our well-being and don't make us feel bad about ourselves. I also did a video about toxic relationships and toxic behavior that I will link down below if that's something that you need further information about. But certainly making sure that we are maintaining only connections that are positive for us is important as well. Another thing that we can do to enhance our social self-care is to be careful with our social media. The amount of time that we're spending on it, first of all, and also how we are feeling when we are on social media. So if we are seeing lots of images that really make us feel bad about ourselves or fill us with self-doubt or jealousy or any negative feelings, that's something that we definitely want to cut down on and have awareness of. So we also don't want to feel guilty if we have to unfriend people or unfollow people or just step away, for a while or entirely if it is necessary. You have to put yourself first, and unfortunately social media does have a lot of negative consequences for many, many people, so that's something to think about as well. We also want to make sure that in any of our relationships, whether they be on social media or in person, that we are setting clear boundaries for what we find acceptable. So we are basically letting people know where our line is in the sand. And this can involve many different things. It can have to do with what we find acceptable in how we are treated and how we are spoken to, what things we are going to take on, what things that we are going to learn to say no to. But it's important that these boundaries really are set and that there is open and honest communication. The next category is spiritual, and this has to do with our meaning, our purpose, and our connectedness to ourselves, to other people, and to a higher power if that is part of your belief system. Now, this is actually a much broader category than it sounds. So if you do have a specific faith or a specific religion, of course, it could include the different rituals and practices that have to do with that faith or that religion. But it could also be as simple as spending enough time alone, spending time in nature, meditating, getting philosophical and answering those big questions such as, who am I? Why am I here? All these things have to do with our spiritual well-being. Nobody likes to feel that they are alone, and we aren't alone. We are connected to the universe. We are connected to humanity and one another. And taking care of our spiritual well-being truly helps us understand that and to truly feel that. And it is a very neglected part of self-care in many cases. And last but not least, we have intellectual self-care. And I think this is another category that often gets neglected, but it is so important. And this is because when we are not growing, we are dying. We need to stay intellectually curious. There's always more things that we can learn about, and that can help us stay inspired and stay excited about being alive. There's so many different ways that we can continue to learn and to adopt that growth mindset. We can listen to podcasts, we can take courses, we can watch videos, we can read books and articles, but there are always different ways that we can really stimulate our intellect. It's also really important that we don't constrict ourselves to consistently learning about the same types of things or reading about the same types of viewpoints. We have this cognitive bias where we are unconsciously always seeking out the same types of information that is always in alignment with what we already believe. And it's important that we continue to challenge our beliefs and so that we can see different perspectives and learn new things. Because if we just surround ourselves with the same things and the same thoughts all the time, we're never going to progress as people. So one thing we can do to help this out is to intentionally seek out relationships or conversations, at least, with people that do have different points of view, that come from different areas and have different perspectives. It really can be an eye-opening experience, and something that greatly helps with this is to travel. I know, again, right now we're kind of restricted in that category, but when we're able to travel, we can experience new ideas and new cultures and even new foods, and all of these things can help us remain intellectually curious. And overall, in general, self-care includes leading a life that is balanced, especially with everything crazy going on in the world right now. It is so important that we remember to have activities in our life that are fun, that are for complete pleasure and enjoyment, and not just fulfilling tasks and obligations all the time. We really do need to have that balance there. One way we can make sure that we're really checking all these boxes is by checking in with the 8 dimensions of wellness, and that's something else that I did a video on. I will link that down below as well. But we want to make sure that we are really looking at all the needs that we have and addressing them one by one. That is the essence of what self-care really is. And I've said it before, but I will certainly say it again, that self-care is not selfish, not at all. It is completely necessary. And in fact, we have the obligation of taking care of ourselves. A lot of times we have guilt when we do take care of ourselves, when really it is our complete and total responsibility. Yes, it's nice when other people take care of us as well, but really the responsibility is on our shoulders. And I know so many of us do have obligations and people that rely on us and that need us to take care of them, but we have to take care of ourselves first, because we cannot pour from an empty cup. And I'm sure you have seen this in your own life, because it's something that we oftentimes try to do, but it is impossible, which is why self-care absolutely needs to be a focus. So definitely let me know in the comments below where you think you have been most neglecting your own self-care and why you think that is the case. I also want you to commit in the comments below to putting yourself first and to really getting much more serious about all the different facets of self-care and maybe some of the strategies that you are going to implement. So as always, I truly hope this video was helpful to you, and if it was, please like it, share it with someone else who may need to hear this same message today, and also do become a subscriber if you aren't one already. We definitely want you to stay connected, and I thank you so much for spending time with me today. Have an absolutely amazing day.